Up next, we have come to the section of investing in gaming and esports, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Esports and gaming are blooming and investors are rushing to get in on the action. The section will discuss some of the opportunities and pitfalls that lie ahead for potential investors in gaming and esports. Is it time for you to join the gold rush, or you should find out who is selling the shuffles first? We are delighted to have Mr. Alex Norman, Counsel and Sport and Media Lead of Bird and Bird, and we'll have Mr. Ring Lee, partner of WNJ Ventures, to share their insights on gaming and esports investment. Now, without further ado, let's hear from Alex and Wayne.
So, hi everyone. It's a real shame not to be able to do this live or in person, but I'm very grateful to Cyberport for the opportunity to participate in Delft and to share my thoughts about investing in esports. My name is Alex Norman, and I lead the sports, media, and gaming sector group in Asia at Bird and Bird, which is an international law firm with a heavy sector focus on media, entertainment, sport, tech, and of course, gaming. Now, some of you may well be wondering, with good reason, what on earth a law firm is doing talking about esports. Well, in our case, the answer is a law firm with clients like these. You'll see on the screen brands, rights holders, sponsors, agencies, and other companies across the media and sports ecosystem. Esports and gaming has, to a greater or lesser extent, touched all of these companies and organizations by digitization, and importantly, gaming. We help clients like these navigate the complexities of the evolving digital landscape, including if and how they interact with gaming and esports. And it also, happily for you, gives us a pretty good idea of where people are seeing value in esports from an investment perspective. So what you see on the slide here, I guess is what most people in business who don't really understand gaming think of when they hear the word esports. They think of treasure, they think of gold, and they think of lots of it. There's a perception that investing in esports is kind of a license to print money, but the uninitiated might not know where to start. So that's what today's session is about. It's where we think the smart money is in esports and why. So in front of you here is the broad esports ecosystem. Think of it as a map of where you could invest. Perhaps you're a brand and you want to sponsor. Perhaps you're a financial investor looking to buy equity in a team. We're going to look at each of these areas very briefly and see how investable they really are. Quick disclaimer, this is clearly not investment advice. Firstly, we're going to look at games on the bottom left of your screen. If you wanted to invest in a game, I've got some bad news for you. Building games is expensive, time-consuming, and hard. Amazon have spent millions of dollars developing a game which is yet to be released and which frankly hasn't got very good reviews in beta as part of their new cloud gaming platform. Unless you have deep pockets or are keen on going back to study computer science and start up your own independent game development studio, investing in games, I'm afraid, is not for you. So no from me. Secondly, players on the bottom of your screen. Players do make money, both those who compete professionally and those who stream for a living on platforms like Twitch. Sometimes this can amount to millions of dollars a year. The other side of the coin is that this money typically doesn't fall that far from the tree or the player that earns it. So players also have short lifespans, move frequently, and rarely have certainty over their earnings beyond basic salary. So again, a no from me. Publishers on the top left and streaming services bottom right. Now, before you accuse me of being too negative, I'm going to give you some good news. If you'd invested in a gaming ETF earlier this year to track the performance of the world's biggest gaming companies, you would be sitting very pretty on a fat profit right now. Bad news is this really isn't, for me, investing in esports, right? It's speculation. It's trading stocks and shares for profit. So if you're really looking to be involved in esports as an investor, investing in the stocks of the world's biggest publishers and streaming services won't cut it. So I'm going to give that a no for today. Esports Associations on the top of your screen. Now, this is where things get a little bit more controversial. There are lots of organizations out there trying to style themselves as a governing body of esports on either a national, an international, or a regional level. What's interesting is the International Olympic Committee has basically flatly refused to partner with or recognize any of them. If you know gaming, you'll know there are huge amounts of games and genres out there. So any governing body could only ever represent a tiny proportion of the gaming and esports world. Now, I will say that if somebody does pull it off and becomes recognized as the global governing body for esports, it will be worth a lot of money. But for me, getting involved in what is now effectively kind of like a land grab isn't an obvious path to riches. So it's a no from me. Now, tournament organizers, top right. Organizing tournaments is really expensive and really hard. Just think of all the cables, gear, and equipment you need. That said, while some organizers struggle, others, like ESL, who you'll see there on the screen, have thrived. You do need great publisher relationships to make this work. So for me, it's a question mark. Community platforms, the middle left of your screen. Now, they're cheap to start. All you need is a website, but difficult to get traction on. These could be news sites, social platforms, or messaging services. Again, difficult, but not impossible to create. Let's see. Another question mark from me. Sponsors on the right-hand side. Non-traditional sponsors have been rushing into esports in the last few years. We were lucky enough to work on the Nike deal for the League of Legends Pro League in China, which generated huge buzz and arguably was transformative in the esports industry. The rush of sponsors into esports shows that some of the smartest companies in the world believe that investing in esports and esports sponsorships brings them ROI. So a yes from me. Finally, teams at the center of your screen. This is where I've seen the most activity as investors scramble for a piece of the action. The logic is that teams are currently attracting relatively low valuations, which should grow as esports itself grows, in a similar way to the value of an NBA franchise has grown exponentially almost over the last 30 years. You can even join in as a retail investor through crowdfunding, as Team Fnatic, one of the logos on your screen, have recently done. If you're lucky enough to back the right team and realize long-term value, you could be heading towards your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but there's no guarantee. But still, a yes from me. So there you have it. Some personal reflections on where and where not to invest in esports. It might not be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but there well may be a few golden coins along the way for you. So that concludes my part, and I'm going to hand over to Wing Lee from WNJ Ventures to continue this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you, Cyberport, for the opportunity. Hi, everyone. My name is Wing. I'm a partner at WNJ Ventures. So we're a family office-backed fund which focuses on investing in businesses that really transforms the way millennials and Generation Z, so our next generation, the way they learn, work, and play. And we invest across both public and private investments within consumer technology sectors. So digital gaming and esports is obviously one such sector. And the way we see it, gaming is the key sector, US dollar $160 billion industry, which has been around for over 40 years. And there are plenty of public equity and private venture investment opportunities here. Esports, on the other hand, is a relatively new subsector, a $1 billion industry projected to grow at roughly 30% a year. We look mainly at private investment opportunities at the moment in this space, although we do see an emerging number of listed equities and investment funds in this space. So I think the esports ecosystem has been covered a little bit before, but for digital gaming, it's really divided into the games based on platforms. So you have mobile, you have console, and you have PC, along with what we call GVC, or gaming video content, which incorporates live streaming and esports content. And then another emerging trend, yes, you see on the right-hand side, is really what we call cross-reality, or XR, which is essentially virtual and augmented reality. As you can see by the numbers, this is last year, but the bulk of the opportunities really remain in the traditional gaming space, although we do see some key innovative trends within this space. Today, we'll probably talk about 4 key trends that we see. Number 1, mobile being and will remain a critical platform. And mobile titles already earn almost 3 out of every $5 spent on digital games. And this is especially a powerful trend in developing economies like in Southeast Asia. And we see a continuing trend for major game developers and publishers to launch mobile versions of their popular franchises like Call of Duty and Fortnite. The second trend is really the importance of gaming IP and intellectual property. We often say that games will inspire the next Marvel or the next Disney universe because players are spending up to thousands and thousands of hours interacting with game characters and stories that have created highly engaged fan base. So we're seeing nowadays crossover where HBO is doing a TV series based on the game The Last of Us. We see Nintendo theme parks opening in Japan. And there's just a ton of investments and efforts put into creating more and more compelling storytelling within the gaming space. Number 3, you have really GVC. One thing that makes gaming extremely special is that the consumption process of the playing itself creates video content, which is unlike when you listen to music or read a book. So this content includes, all the streaming and all the esports and all the competition, and the platforms that are really monetizing from this would be places like YouTube, Twitch, Huya, and Mixer. And lastly, gaming as a social network is a big theory that we have. Traditional shooting game like Fortnite can already be compared to something like Facebook. Just yesterday, US musician and rapper Travis Scott reportedly earned over $20 million by performing an in-game concert in Fortnite earlier this year, where 12 million people attended. So from this perspective, we're really looking at the next social network, which is an industry often valued at over $600 billion a year. So the next slide here is really just to paint a picture of the type of investment exposures that we look at, so it doesn't constitute as any investment advice. But so the first thing we really look at stocks and structured products corresponding to the first trend of mobile, something like C Limited, which is a combination of e-commerce and gaming, and produce some very popular Southeast Asia mobile titles. For gaming IP, you're looking at companies in this space like Nintendo, potentially the next Disney, as we mentioned, and just very innovative when it comes to bringing new gaming hardware for family entertainment. So you've got the Switch, the Ring Fit, as well as successes in software and games like Animal Crossing in 2020. For things like the GVC trend, I think more niche companies like Enthusiast Gaming, which is a Canadian company backed by investors of the Vancouver Canucks hockey team, they're really focused on media and community building in gaming and esports, so content, journalism, live streaming, advertising, and event organization. There are also funds of different types. You have hybrid funds like Invesco Consumer Trends Fund, which is more a basket of consumer technology stocks that includes gaming stocks, to pure play esports by region. So you have the Nikko AM here, which is an Asia focused esports funds, and you have maybe 4 to 5 really more prominent, I would say, ETFs across Europe and the US as well. So these do give you some degree of exposures if you want to invest in something a bit more diversified rather than a single stock. And then lastly, I think in the private space, you're really seeing a range of deals across the full spectrum of investment stages. So, which is why we're really excited about future investment opportunities in the space, because there's just going to be more and more private companies coming up with new innovation, whether it's in traditional gaming, whether it's in cloud gaming and mobile gaming, or the new kind of more like social network type of gaming environment. So really interesting space. And so if you do have any questions and want to reach out and explore investment opportunities, collaborations, here's my contact details, and you can follow our LinkedIn page, WNJ Ventures. Thank you for your time today.
Thank Alex and Wayne for wonderful sharing.